Hi there, it's Nicole from Research Like a Pro, the question and answer series. And for today's video, we have Diana Elder talking about how to use AncestryDNA custom clusters in your research. And she's going to share an example from her own research of how she used custom clusters to help her hone in on a relevant cluster for her Cline research project. So this will not only give you an overview of how to set up custom clusters and selecting your target matches and your sidekick matches, but also how it can be applied in an actual research project. This is an excerpt from our monthly Research Like a Pro office hours where course members can ask questions and get regular tips.
So we are going to talk for a bit about the new Ancestry custom clusters. This is a pro tool, so if you subscribe to Ancestry Pro Tools, you may be seeing this now. I know they rolled it out gradually, but when it first came out, you could only do the clustering tool with just the set amount of centimorgans, and you couldn't do anything custom with deciding who you wanted to be your target match. You just basically took what they gave you. But now they have announced their custom clusters. And so I thought I'd just do a little demo and give some ideas of how that could be useful in our research. So where do you find clusters? If you haven't seen them yet, you go to your match page, and the match page looks a little different now than it used to. You know, things keep changing around on these websites, but you can see up here, you can look at all matches by parent, by ancestor, or by cluster, or by location. So if you click on by cluster, then you will see that you can now create a custom cluster. And so you would just click on that, and then it will give you some information. Now, I highlighted this. This is not highlighted on the Ancestry page, but I thought this was really good to pay attention to. You can have 25 clusters in your history at a time. Clusters expire after 30 days unless added to a group. A cluster may disappear if a match opts out of matches or deletes their test. So I have had clusters change or look different. And so we have to realize that these clusters are a moving target. So when you get a cluster that you think is very helpful, you need to make sure you're adding it to a group. I would also recommend something like doing a screenshot, just capturing it for your own records so that you have it, and knowing that it's going to expire after 30 days unless you add it to a group, because you may have done some work and had this great cluster, and then you go back, the days have gone by and it's gone. So make sure you're paying attention to that. So why do we want to do a custom cluster? Well, I was doing some thinking about this, and the thoughts that I had are these. First of all, it gives us a chance to really hone in on ancestral lines. When we are working in Research Like a Pro, we're working to a very specific objective, and we are working on a very specific part of our match list. And this custom cluster can help us really get to those specific lines quicker. It can narrow down those thousands and thousands of matches that we have, and it can hopefully help us quickly find a group of DNA matches who descend from a common ancestor. Now, of course, the shared matches and Pro Tools shared matches of, doing the next step of finding how much everyone shares with each other. Those are all really, really helpful things that we can use in conjunction with this. But sometimes we want to just have this be a little bit faster to give us that group of people to start looking at and quickly get them all into a group. So how do you create the custom cluster? Ancestry does give some recommendations. So this is a screenshot from the website, and it says if you have a mystery ancestor, let's say that you have a great grandparent you do not know, you are looking for second cousins, and your centimorgan range would be 90 to 340 centimorgans, which is how much DNA you'd share with your cousins. So they give you a set parameter that you could try out. If you're going next to second great grandparents, you would be looking for third cousins, and your range would be 40 to 120 centimorgans. And if you're looking for a third great grandparent, you're looking at fourth cousins and 20 to 60 centimorgans. So is this going to work beyond third great grandparents, going out to the fourth and the fifth great grandparents? Well, yes, but I believe on that level, then we are going to have to do a lot more work, which is what we do learn how to do. So how you create your custom cluster is you have to choose a target DNA match. And Ancestry recommends that second or third cousin, but of course, you can choose whatever you want. And then you choose 4 additional matches who also share DNA with the target match. You set your centimorgan range for the cluster, and then you have it go ahead and do the cluster. So there is an Ancestry support article that you can click on in these different web pages that explains it in pretty understandable language. It's pretty high level, helps you get started on that. But I wanted to try this out with my latest DNA project, which is Clemsy Cline. I have done several different phases of this project, and my last phase was a DNA phase. I had a possible father for Clemsy in a John C. Cline, and I wanted to test and see if I had any DNA to support that. So my objective is to use DNA evidence and documentary research. This project aims to test the hypothesis that John C. Cline was the biological father of Clemsy Cline Weatherford. And then I have some identifying information about John. He was born in 1785 in Pennsylvania, Virginia. He died after 1852. He appears in tax and land records in Izard and Fulton counties, Arkansas, between 1830 and 1852. So he's an elusive individual. He's in this area that had a lot of burned records, burned counties. And so he's been a little difficult to track down and especially difficult to find connections to children. Now, Clemsy was born 1820 in Alabama, and she died after 1880 in Texas, and she married Henderson Weatherford about 1838 in Izard County. So the connection between Clemsy and John C. Cline is Izard County. They are both there in the same place. They have the same surname. And so that might seem like that's just a little bit circumstantial, and yeah, it is. And so that's why I really needed to have DNA to help and see if there was something else that I could pull together to prove this. Well, I did a DNA network graph through Gephi and was able to really hone in on the appropriate lines. This was on my paternal side, and I wanted to bring in pretty much just the Weatherford and the Clines. And interestingly enough, I got a few Royce and Dillard groups in there and some Cox and Barbies from another line. But you can see I had all these different Weatherford and Cline groups that all clustered together. And I had identified some key matches here in this purple pink Cline group that seemed to be coming down through John C. Cline. So I started exploring those. And, of course, the first thing you're doing in a DNA project is trying to make sure you've got DNA evidence for your known ancestor. And so here's Clemsy, and here are her known children. And then I had DNA matches through all of those independent lines of her children. So I had 3 test takers, myself and 2 cousins, and we had a lot of DNA evidence amongst the 3 of us for all of Clemsy's descendants. So I felt good about our genetic descent from Clemsy and Henderson Weatherford. Now, I had found a hypothesized sibling of Clemsy in a Mahala Cline who married a Shockley. I'm not sure if she's half or full sibling yet, but I was able to find some genetic evidence. And so you can see here's Mahala, and here's the 2 sisters or half sisters, and then children, and then, of course, the descendants. And these match the descendants of Clemsy. And I also found genetic connections between another hypothesized, this would be a half brother through John Cline's second wife, William Abner Cline, and found quite a bit of DNA evidence coming down through William Abner Cline as well. So I was feeling good about this. And then finally, through one other half sibling, Anne Cline, I found even more genetic evidence. So I was feeling pretty good about this. But of course, with genetic genealogy, we want to further our hypotheses. We want to really feel like we're coming to really good proof. And so in my future research suggestions, I had put to continue to explore DNA matches in the Cline cluster of the Gephi network graph, seeking additional DNA matches from Clemsy's siblings, and then add coverage to the project by asking DNA matches to share their ancestry DNA results. Well, I could do this, but the neat thing is now with Pro Tools, I could actually add coverage just by seeing how much many of those matches share with each other, and that will help. And I wondered if the new custom clusters would help me to find more matches. I've got that big Klein cluster, but would a custom cluster help me to narrow things down a bit? So I already had done a lot of work in the DNA and I wanted to find a target match who would be a good one to start with. And so I decided to take my target from Mihaela Klein Shockley, and then I found 4 other matches who are descendants of Clemsy who also matched with this target match. And I went pretty low. I mean, the lowest you can go is 20 centimorgans, and I just kept it up to 50. I didn't want to get too many matches in there. And when I clustered it, I found several subclusters within this large group of Klein descendants. So I had narrowed it down to just be descendants coming from John C. Klein. And I was hoping I would find another group, some more matches to add. Well, this is what I got. And you can see that it separated out. Here's a really nice, clear little collection of matches. And here's another cluster. And here are some other subclusters down here. Here's kind of a large one. And you can see that some of these, fit multiple because obviously they're all coming from John C. Klein. And so they're going to match with a lot of different people. But I was really excited to see these two, especially that group together pretty closely. And when you do the custom clusters or even just the regular clustering on Ancestry, your matches, which are across the top and the side, you can hover over one and click on it and it will tell you, the information, how much DNA is shared, and will take you to their match page. You can look at the trees. So I started looking to see who had the biggest trees here in this cluster, and I found this was a cluster of people all coming through William Abner Klein. So he was one of the people I had associated as a sibling or a half sibling to my Clemsy Cline. And I wanted to have more DNA to go along with that hypothesis. And so now I've got a lot more people that I can explore and add. Now, this one is an interesting one because none of these people have trees that agree on where they come from. And so I'm excited to dig into this cluster and see if I can do a little tree building and see where these people are all connecting because they're all connecting to each other. And I'm hoping that this could be another sibling of Clemsy or just adding evidence to one of the hypothesized siblings I have. So this is really exciting for me to have this big cluster broken down a little bit so I can start exploring more, making it a little bit more granular for me. So some ideas for using this. Remember that they expire after 30 days, so make sure you're adding to a group. I already have my big Klein cluster for John C. Klein. For these subclusters, I'm considering just naming those, subcluster, possible sibling. We can name our clusters whatever we want, and we can always change them. We can delete them if we figure out who they are, but we have to figure out some way to hang on to those until we have finished our research on them. And I think that it's very beneficial to try different target matches, especially when we're working back at trying to determine a third or fourth or fifth great grandparent. We're working in small centimorgans. And if we can only go down to 20, we might want to try a lot of different people to see who they could pull into their cluster. We know that DNA inheritance is random, and some people are just going to inherit larger pieces of DNA than others. So trying different target matches and those Ancestry, I think, calls them sidekick matches, the extra 4 that you put in there, could pull in different matches. So what are you going to do when you're trying all these different things and you're experimenting with different centimorgan ranges? Well, that's where you can use your Airtable research log. So this would be a great place to use Airtable. And as you are trying out all your different custom clusters, then you could put in specifically who you are putting as your target and your sidekick matches and what your centimorgan range was and the results. And you're going to need a place to track it. I think Airtable would be a great way to try tracking that. So I hope everybody can go try custom clusters. I think it is just an exciting new thing, and maybe they're going to go down below 20 centimorgans someday. I tried doing just for fun another tried another target match and some matches, just kind of throwing in some random things. And all I got was like a huge blob in that Cline group. And so it really does make a difference who you put as your target. So, doing your homework, figuring out how people connect, and then trying different things will definitely help us.